And we're back one more time with another episode of our podcast. This time joined by special guests,
Very special guests.
team from Waypoint. It's been we've been talking a lot about the acquisition, and I'm sure a lot of people have heard some of the story. But there's a big component of the story that got us to the place that we are in today, which is the contribution from the team over here. So, gents, welcome on the podcast.
Thank you very much. Very nice to be here.
Pleasure. Well, firstly, welcome back to Dubai. Some of you have been here before, some of you first time. So welcome to the city. And I think today we just wanted to really kind of uncover and chat a little bit about the journey that we took together, right? 4 years, a long time. We were very different business back then than we are today. And I'm sure there's been many pivot points that we went through together. So if you were to maybe, start us off by firstly introduce yourself and also maybe a summary around what did you see in us back 4 years ago that you felt, okay, well, I can work with these guys?
Oh, big question to start with there, mate. No pressure.
That's right on the spot.
Let's go, yeah.
Thanks very much. Yeah. So let me try. So I'm Phil Gripton. I'm a partner at Waypoint, and I've known you guys now for 4 years, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
So going to your question, what did I see here? So I think that the most important thing was I was introduced to you, or I was introduced to Tom from somebody else I was working with at the time, and I was told, "This is Tom. Got this business, great potential. Why don't you talk?" And it was just kind of before the COVID period, so it was in that part of the sort of world at the moment. And I thought, okay, I'll have a conversation with Tom. And I met with Tom, and what I found was so refreshing was Tom kind of went, "We know a lot of stuff, but the stuff we don't know too.
Yeah.
We think you guys might be able to help us because you've been through this stuff before." I think because I'd run an agency before and gone through a transaction, he kind of felt that would be appropriate. And then I think once we got talking to all of you, realised high potential, just need some assistance to kind of get some guide rails around it, and then the future could be amazing. So that was what made you so attractive, I think.
Amazing.
And that journey 4 years back, I mean, we talked about this the other day. We were a different business. You know, I see it as our business grew up with Waypoint and with the support of Waypoint. But could you maybe just explain to the audience a little bit about that relationship for those 4 years and what that engagement looked like early on, and then how it developed?
Sure. So I think in the first instance, we very much started on that. Let's look at the ship and see what's good on the ship, what needs to change on the ship. And obviously we're benchmarking that to what we know to be sort of best in class in the industry, having worked with almost 300 different businesses now over the period of our lifetime. We kind of know what makes sense, and of course we also look through the lens of the acquirers, and we know what they're looking for, so we can do that benchmark assessments in the first place, knowing what needs to grow, what needs to change. And then from there, it was a case of then moving into, right, how do we plan this so that we can set off on a trajectory that everybody's comfortable with, everyone knows where they're going, and then we can stop doing the things that aren't going to take us there and focus in on the things that do take us there. And I think, once we went through that process with you, Tom talked about the traffic light system that we did.
A lot of red lights.
Yeah, red lights, green light, amber, But to be fair, that's the situation with most people, right? We always talk about that kind of emotional roller coaster at the beginning, where we kind of congratulate you for things you're doing well, and then show you things maybe you need to focus on. But you guys had come out of this, you were through startup very much, you were into grow up phase, and then it was how do we scale up?
Yeah.
And I think that was the early start of our relationship, was all around that growth phase, getting you to kind of mature some of the things, looking at some of the areas that maybe you needed to strengthen, and we started straight into finance, into how you were going to market in terms of your sales, some of the operational efficiency stuff. And that was how it started. And then obviously as that matured over time, we then went into a little bit more about how you're going to invest in your future, what were the things you were going to prioritize, deprioritize, which markets you were going to play in. And that was like the midsection, if you like, as you built and grew. And and the beautiful thing about it was you kept doing really well, which was quite helpful. So thank you for that. And then obviously as you started then to mature that a little bit further, then it got to, okay, well at some point we're going to need to superpower what we do. And that was when you started talking about, well, how are we going to do that? We can keep growing organically, which you did fantastically, but then it was like, how do we supercharge that? And that was when you started looking for, is there an opportunity to bring in some extra firepower, some, maybe a partner in that could help us fuel the future? And that's when my good friend Gary here got involved.
And a quick intro on my side. So Gary Whyte, Managing Director of the team at Waypoint. So as kind of Phil mentioned, I came into the story slightly later. You guys had obviously been working with Phil and the team and, doing great things in the marketplace. And, as Phil talked about that period after COVID and, the great growth there and kind of really building out a strong infrastructure and being on a a fantastic journey. And it was just such a natural progression then, where you guys had got to that position that's common for really successful agencies, where you are still the independent, but you're very, very strong in the region. You're now competing against all the big players for the really interesting accounts, and the natural evolution there is that let's bring on board a partner that can provide that international footprint, the access to the best global talent, best technology, and take you on the next chapter of the business. And yeah, it was an honour to be involved in that.
Yeah, honors always ours as well. I think for a lot of our listeners, some of them might be on the very similar journey, right? So growing their own companies, going on this growth journey, and with growth comes a lot of challenges. We were trying to fix a plane while we're growing the plane, running at 100 miles an hour as well. From your perspective, and of course going through this process many times, what do you think is important to always keep in mind for a growing company, in the agency space, as they're focused on growth, focused on the product? We thought we knew our business really well, and then we realized, hold on, there's a lot of red traffic lights here that we actually didn't know much about. Yeah. So what are the key sort of crucial components to keep in mind as you're growing any business?
That's the kind of the best question, isn't it? Because there's so many different variables. But I think the most important thing is the old classic of those who fail to plan to fail. And that's kind of the first thing. And most people that we meet have a sort of pseudo plan about where they're going, but it isn't really kind of fully developed, and they haven't broken it down into the various components. So getting that bit right, understanding what are the things you're actually going to focus on and do was really important. And I think that was one of the first things we got through together. And then also I think what we've seen is the people who do have a proper plan that they've worked out are much more likely to get there. Mm-hmm. The guys who kind of go, oh yeah, we'll see ourselves growing, and in 3 years' time we'll do X, Y, and Z. They never tend to really get there. They kind of amble around and never make it. So being wholly focused against a plan that everyone's bought into, building a senior leadership team around that who can execute the plan, who have accountability for it, and distribute that out through the team. So if everything rolls up to the single leader in the business, inevitably they become a single point of failure. Yeah. So how that gets distributed out is so important for businesses, so that they can then power at the speed of their entire team, not just of the one individual. I think that's fundamental for them as well. And then the last thing is about, where's the ambition? They've got to have a strong enough ambition to want to get there. Somebody asked me the other night, Phil, who's your ideal client? And I said, is it all about revenue, or is it about how much EBITDA they have? And I said, well, actually, no, it's more about the attitude of the person. Have they got that ambition to grow? Have they got the determination to really drive it through? And I mean, that was absolutely one of the key criteria with you guys. I mean, you guys do not lack ambition.
Sure.
And you certainly are prepared to kind of go for it. The amount of effort you guys have put in is amazing. And from our perspective, an ideal client has those attributes and qualities.
And I think maybe from our side, it's important to mention that we never felt that this relationship is a client-supplier relationship. We were like, no, actually, we're all one team, and we're trying to achieve this, this ambition together. And that was really key to the success of the journey, because if we started thinking in a different way, I don't think we would have really taken on board all the recommendations and really, put them into place. And I think that's really important on the journey.
Absolutely. I mean, a couple of days ago when we did the panel, you used the word client, and it almost it felt uncomfortable for me, because I realised that, hang on, we're the clients. It's like fantastic client service in there. Okay, so we talked about our journey as creating and a couple of the key things anyone growing an agency needs to focus on. What have you seen in this region over the past few years? I mean, it's changed significantly since we started working together. What excites you about it?
Okay, why do you start? Because you're looking forward, and I'll talk a little about what I've seen and change.
Yeah, no, it's great to be out here, and spending a lot of time in the region, and great to spend time with you guys, obviously, over the course of this week. But I think there's huge opportunity in the region. I think everyone's aware of that. I think from putting more of an M&A slant and perspective on things. You look at the global markets just now. Still a lot of turmoil, still a lot of uncertainty. Particularly so in the last number of weeks. MENA as a region is really viewed as real growth market. The pace of digital transformation is very fast. There's a lot happening very quickly. There's a lot of evolution happening in the region, and you guys have obviously entered into the partnership with Stagwell. we'd be expecting to see a lot more activity happening there, as lot more people are looking to not only enter the region but also to build on the existing presence that they have, and seeing that as the real key cornerstone to a growth plan over the next certainly 3 to 5 years.
I think from my perspective, I've been coming here since the 90s, right? And what I've seen is that, the vision that was set out in the early days of what this place was going to become has just been realized, even through financial traumas of 2008, etc. So the momentum is there, the vision is there, and the determination to get through it is clear. And what that's meant is the opportunity for entrepreneurs who think the right way here, it's just phenomenal. I mean, if I compare it to, I was talking the other day to a colleague, and I said, the thing about this region is, if you take the competence and the capability and you multiply it by the opportunity, that's when you see the real things happening. In other markets, particularly in my home market, the competence and capability is there, but sometimes the opportunity just isn't the same, and therefore it's a little bit flat. So, when you come out here, it's effervescent. Everybody's up for it. Everyone's getting really excited, and that carries it. Plus, then I heard the statistic that there's 100,000 people per month arriving here to create their own futures. I mean, by definition, that's going to give you huge momentum.
Yeah.
So I think that's what makes it exciting for me, is that, it's just going to keep going.
And have you seen the vision, well, the vision of the region, and then the vision programs of multiple countries and Emirates? Have you seen those programs have an impact on the maturity of independent agencies here over the last 5 to 10 years?
It's difficult for us to speak holistically about all the other agencies, but in terms of, take it, you as case study, you guys have absolutely followed that path. It looks like the competitors and some of the other independents that we're meeting now have also gone down similar paths. Scale seems to be something that they've all managed to achieve reasonably well. There are still the smaller agencies coming up, but specialism seems to be something that they've developed out here as well. The hugely integrated large businesses, the networks obviously are here and doing well too. So it seems like the space for everybody. Seems like maturity is coming through. Seems like people are realizing there's an opportunity and therefore capitalizing on it. So, I think it's a fair reflection.
Yeah, and I think just to add to that, there's very few regions that has such a defined blueprint. This is the plan over the next 10 years, and this is what we're going after. And building on what Phil was saying, you get a strong sense here that everyone just gets behind the kind of central agenda. Everyone's moving towards a common goal, and is keen to be entrepreneurial, to build together. There's a huge amount of collaboration in the region, and it's quite refreshing in comparison to other markets that are maybe highly competitive in certain areas, and more kind of internationally diverse in agendas. So it's really refreshing.
It's funny when we are sitting and working with people, helping them plan out their account strategies and developing their businesses. We're trying to get them to look ahead. Raise your field of vision. What an amazing place, especially when you're working with the nation states here and the governments here, that they've given you that vision document. It's about 2030, 2033. I mean, it's kind of like, that's just a fantastic thing. You've got anchor points to attach yourselves to. It makes it so much easier to predict. Whereas in other markets, you may get an 18-month, a 3-year window in a business, but it's not at a national level. So.
And I think that clarity around the communication of the strategy is really, key to lay out the opportunity for all of us. Yeah. But maybe bringing it back to the acquisition process. As we were going through it, we learned a lot. We thought initially, cool, you're going to sign a document and everything will be good. And the next day you're going to be part of the network. But we were, especially in the last couple of days, we were chatting a lot about what makes an acquisition successful, and a lot of nuances around it. So do you want to maybe touch on that a little bit from your experience? It's not just about agreeing to the deal, but actually how to make an acquisition successful.
Yeah, well, let me start, and then Gary can take that, because he can do it all the time.
Yeah, of course.
I think from my perspective, it's about, you've got to be ready, and you haven't got to go in the wrong way. And I think, the amount of people we meet who say, yeah, I'm ready. It's like, maybe not, And it's about making sure that you understand what it's going to take to go through a process, what that impact that's going to have on your business, because it's quite a diversionary process, and you end up spending a lot of time doing things. You've got to make sure the day-to-day business continues to run as you're going through it. So, preparation's critical, understanding what you're going to do, and understanding, importantly, what do you want out of this? Because I think, a lot of people just think it's only about the dollar, and it's not. It is about making sure that you achieve what you want for your business. So preparation and thinking and planning is really important before you actually jump into the mechanistic pieces.
Yeah, I think that's right, Phil. And I think you had laid such strong foundations in the year building up to, the transaction, and building out the infrastructure, building the business the right way, investing in the right areas. Really setting up the business for a strong future, and the deliverment of your own vision over the next 2 to 3 years. And the addition of a strategic partner coming into that mix was just really an opportunity to accelerate that. And because the groundwork that you had laid had been so strong going into that preparation phase, you could really focus on the important part, which was the partnership. Who is the right party out there that can really take us on as a business. We can continue doing what we're doing, can achieve great things, but we can really, really supercharge this business with the right partner that shared the right vision and could provide the right support, frankly. So leading with the partnership front and center of what you were looking to achieve process made the whole thing a lot smoother and just feel like absolutely the right next step for the business.
I think we talk in our value proposition, we talk about being your coach for the greatest game of your life. And I mean, often with entrepreneurs, this is the greatest game. This is the thing you've nurtured and built and grown. So it's got to go well. And the way we felt that we played this, we were coaching you through the early stages, then into the kind of preparation for the big game that was coming up. This was the World Cup was coming up.
Exactly.
And then Gary steps in last minute and he's helping you get
the final game. Let's go.
Exactly. But now now we're through that period. It's now what next. So and I'm really excited that hopefully we'll be helping you guys in the next phase, because then it's about how do you then accelerate again. So the relationship isn't just about a transaction, or isn't just about kind of growth. It's about the whole journey. And I think that's what makes it great. And if you've got that working relationship that we have, that feels really good.
And what does that look like for Waypoint usually? What that process post transaction and the support that you provide agencies?
Yeah, it's interesting because traditionally anybody in M&A isn't seen as that kind of post event. It's like, when you're ready to do your next deal, we'll turn up. But I think with us, what we found we've ended up doing is work to help people realize their earnouts, obviously, in terms of what they're doing there. There could still be work that needs to be doing around kind of how you're going to market your sales, how you're going to build in the new markets, we help with that. Or it may actually be around kind of thinking through and strategizing where you're going to go next. Because, no agency that goes through a process like this is the same when they started and when they get through it. And the demands, especially with AI and the way in which the market's going, we have to anticipate what's going to be like in 2.5, 3 years' time, and then help you shape so that you can land into it, and your clients will come with you and say, of course I want that, because that's the future. So I think that's where we're going to spend time together. Bit of thought time, bit of kind of working through some stuff, and then help you with whatever's needed, No,
100%. I mean, you've been visiting this region now for, a little bit more frequently now that we're here as well, right? So I guess the question is, are you planning on growing more roots in the region in Dubai? Do you feel like you're... I don't need to put you on the spot.
No, I appreciate that. I mean, we have other clients here. So we're working with others at the moment, which is good. And obviously, we've met some new people this week, which we think are, some great opportunities. So we absolutely hope so. Philip, one of our colleagues, has already nominated himself for opening the office.
I bet he has.
He's like, I'll do it. So I think there's a very high chance, and I think because, as Gary's saying, the power of the region means that there's going to be more and more opportunity here. We think it's reasonably opportunistic for us too. So we'll be playing harder here. So you're not going to get rid of us that easy.
No, amazing.
I think just to add there, I think sometimes there's a certain perception of what an advisor adds to an equation, and I think most people think to a transaction, or I need support, or I've been approached by X, Y, and Z, or I'm looking to raise investment. Can you help me? Document this, get it over the line. Help me with the information supply, etc. But our role, and where the really exciting part of the journey is, it is the journey. It's the bit that leads up to that, and actually, yes, we can help you with the transaction, but where we're really interested is helping with that growth, and really driving towards what are your objectives. And everyone's objectives are different, and what they're trying to achieve personally, what they're trying to achieve for the team in terms of a legacy, and what they're leaving behind, and the employment opportunities and progression opportunities for their staff. And there's so much that goes into that thinking, and some people come to us with a very defined view of, I want to raise a minority investment, sell some of my equity, but we start then exploring that with agency leaders, and it's very apparent that actually that might not be the best option here, and have you considered these alternatives, and how does that fit in with the overall plan? That's what we love to lead with, and really developing a strong close relationship extension of the leadership team over time, because that's the rewarding part.
Yeah, 100%. And it is a journey. I think you recently shared a post around how entrepreneurship or starting a business is the biggest self-development journey that you can ever go on, right?
It's wild. It is absolutely wild.
Part of that, of course, there's so many different nuances, and thank you so much for being on this journey with us. I think you've added a humongous amount of contribution and really kind of expanded our horizon to what's possible and guided us, in the right direction. I think if I was to reflect on the 4 years, what I really enjoyed is you've managed to highlight what's important to us and keep us focused on that. I think that's really important and key. Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. Yeah, and in response to that, I mean, likewise, back to you guys, because you've been brilliant to work with. Because first of all, you've heard everything we've told you, you've been prepared to listen to it, and then you've acted. And I mean, there's nothing better than that, because you make those suggestions, you make those recommendations, and then they go and do it, and it's worked, right? So
I appreciate that. I mean, to follow up on Dear's point there, I think the impact you and the team have had on our team, on our business, and on us personally, we've all been on journeys. I said it the other day, right? We were almost kids when we started working together, and the agency's grown up, and I think the team have grown up as well, and deeply appreciate that. And I know we've only scratched the surface of M&A here and the complexities of the journey we've been on together. So maybe we'd just like to give your podcast a shout out, because there's some incredibly useful info on there, and it's definitely worth a listen for anyone who's more interested in this space.
Particularly the two pieces that Tom's done,
So we'll leave links below in the description. If you guys want to, of course, follow up and get in touch. Gents, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you. Cheers.